It's the Poojie Podcast, proudly sponsored by Cimarron Golf Club. What is going on, Pooj crew? Thank you for being here for episode 86 of the Poojie Podcast. Extremely excited about this episode. Not only is it a beautiful Monday morning following an electric 3 days of NFL football draft talk and awesomeness here in Jacksonville and all over the league, actually. Some great picks being made all over the place. I know my guest lined up today, been on the podcast previously, excited to be here again to talk about some guys he's familiar with based on his profession. You can see it behind me, the ULM logo back there. We have Xavier Brewer back on the Poojie Podcast. He was on a few months ago when he was still with Clemson. Xavier, thanks for being here.
What's going on? Appreciate you having me.
Of course, man. So I just got to start it off with this. I listened to your episode from last time a few weeks ago, and the very last thing you said, I asked you what the next steps were for Xavier Brewer, and you said, I feel like I'm ready to be a position coach. I feel like I'm ready to take that next step. And look at you now, a few months later, you talked it into existence. You're now a position coach at ULM under head coach Terry Bowden. That's got to be pretty cool for you, man.
No doubt. Dream come true. Something I knew I always wanted to do after I was done playing ball was coach at a high level. And when it comes to D1 football right now, where I'm at is probably one of the lowest levels, but it's the next step in the right direction. And I'm thankful for my past experience, being able to see what it's supposed to look like and better bring that here to ULM to take this program to another level.
Yeah, man, I love it. Now, obviously, it gives me a reason to watch more teams in football. You just mentioned before we started recording, you kind of become, attached to teams just based on who you know. I like to follow teams based on people that I know just to follow the success. And one thing we always hear about within the coaching world is the coaching tree. And here, you're what are you in your 30s right now? Early 30s? 31. So your coaching tree right now is already fabulous. You have Dabo Sweeney and Terry Bowden, and you're already off to a hot start. So that's two great guys to learn under.
No doubt. I'm very thankful, very blessed, and just trying to make the most of these opportunities and then hopefully have them one day.
So I have to ask you, going from Clemson, obviously this blue blood, blue chip program to ULM, what are like some of the glaring differences just as far as maybe the processes go, or what did you have to adjust to maybe throughout the process going from Clemson to ULM?
I would say, the biggest thing is from going from being a grad coach to being a position coach. So now, instead of assisting, I'm running my own room now. So I'm running the meetings. I did some of that at Clemson, nowhere with the level I'm doing it now. Run my own meetings. I have to keep track of the guys, their grades, and make sure they're taking their schoolwork. I got to get to know them even at a deeper level as well, get to know their families. I got to recruit. So obviously I recruited some at Clemson, but it's a whole nother level now. It's my position group. So I get to pick and choose what I want instead of suggesting, if I want, So a lot more responsibility, I would say, is the biggest thing right now for me, taking that jump from a graduate assistant to a position coach. As far as background of high-level football, like you said, blue chip level coaching, staff is up there. We can compete with anybody. The staff Coach Bowden's put together, Rich Rodriguez as our offensive coordinator, and then Zach Alley, a young gun. He's 27, 28 years old, and he's our defensive coordinator. But he had an extensive time with Coach Venables over at Clemson. In the last 2 years, he's been at Boise State as position coach, and he's more than ready to be a high-level defensive coordinator. And we're recruiting at a good level. We actually just got a commitment from a Wake Forest transfer today, one of their leading tacklers from the last couple of years. So I got a kid coming from Missouri that's been the average 500 snaps in the SEC the last year's corner. And thankfully, just God worked it out where his brother was in the portal coming from Purdue as a receiver. So we landed both those guys. So a lot of big things coming, a lot of good players coming, but the biggest thing, we had to change the culture and the mindset here, and we've been able to do that so far.
That's awesome. And obviously it starts at the top with good leadership, and that stems into the positional coaches as well, and even further beyond that. So that's awesome to hear. And you talk about recruiting. What's the difference in recruiting going from, Clemson, you're going after these massive names, these massive guys that are known nationwide pretty much in the football world, and you're at ULM. Is there a conscious, this is who we're going after, that you're going to start day one when you step on the football field? We want you to be a part of this culture change. Have you seen that actually take place in your own, I guess, recruiting pitch, or when you're talking to players, just that shift going from one to the next?
Yeah, it's just different. But at the end of the day, like, you're looking for good football players that you think can help your team and where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta find is those diamonds in the rough. There's so many guys that don't go to Clemson that are good enough to go to Clemson. They don't even get recruited by Clemson. They just don't get found. So it's on us as a program to do what we got to do to go find those diamonds in the rough. Shoot, Khalil Mack, where'd he end up at? Buffalo?
Yeah, Buffalo.
So it's our job. I know. With that being said, that's long-term thinking. But when it comes to, like, as far as the skill level of the player, it's just a different kind of mindset. Like, we're not going to get obviously the 5-star who has all the offers. You know what I'm saying? We got to find that guy who probably is close to that, or he has a trait where he's too short as like a linebacker. And the bigger schools didn't want him, but he has every other thing you're looking for.
Yeah.
Or you got a corner who's maybe not quite as fast, but he has excellent ball skills. He got excellent, what we call redeemable traits. From that standpoint. But that's, like I said, long-term thing. But for right now, the big difference, we're actually recruiting the transfer portal. Never had to go transfer because obviously they developed their guys and they recruited well, and evaluated well. And then also we're going JUCO. At Clemson, that's just one of Coach Swinney's rules. He doesn't go junior college. And, so from an immediate standpoint, we need guys in this 2021 class that are going to help us this season. And we put together a good group. And so I would say those are the two biggest things, because recruiting high school kids one thing, but recruiting a kid who's basically he's an adult. He's been in college for 3-4 years, and you're not giving him the same pitch. You're letting him. If guys coming for 1 year, hey man, I want you to come here, do your thing for 1 year, and guess what? You can take it to the next level.
Yeah, and it's great you say that. That's exactly how you build a program. You bring in the right type of guys that fit the culture, and it's almost like building a business. You start baby steps, you start building block by block. You meet needs here at different positions, and you just kind of put things together the right way. And I got to say this, man, as a UCF fan myself, I know how much a culture change can change everything, because we going 0-12, 6 years ago, that's something I'll never forget, no matter how good the program ever becomes. You almost have to experience those lows to experience that culture change, and you get the right guys in, you get the right pieces in, the right coaches in, and it just changes everything. The fan base at ULM has to be excited about this. I know a few other Clemson coaches have gone to ULM as well, including yourself. And here in Jacksonville, even now, they're kind of claiming us as Clemson of the South, with most recent news of Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, both first-round picks by the Jaguars, coming to Jacksonville. How do you feel about that?
They're the reason I'm rocking my long sleeve. I think you see my sleeve.
Yeah.
They're the reason I'm rocking my Clemson orange right now. And because I got a big smile on my face, I'm just excited for both those guys, man. I coached against Trevor when he was in high school, and I was actually at Bartram Trail. Our first game of the season just happened to be we're traveling to play Trevor Lawrence.
Wow.
And it was a great showdown, but being able to see his development and his maturity, even after the game, just how humble he was, just obviously let him know I'm a Clemson grad and looking for his next 3-4 years. And he was just so receptive, looked me in the eye, and, just see his development as a young man. He's inspired so many people in a positive way. What he did last year with saving college football, I know he's been credited for that. Him and a few other guys on the team, but obviously him putting his face out there, that meant a lot to a lot of people, and just he's so much more than just an excellent football player, man. He's going to change that community in Jacksonville. He's going to bring so much, he looks like sunshine off Remember the Titans, but I'm telling you, it's going to bring that doom and gloom that's been over the city for so long when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I feel like it's going to be way brighter than I know a lot of people are excited, and they should be.
Yeah, I think as a Jaguar fan, every offseason, whatever, January rolls around, we're not even in the playoffs. It's, we're looking ahead to the free agency and the draft. And we always come away saying, oh, we won the offseason. We won the offseason. And it's like, okay, did we really win the offseason? We still only won 4 games the next year. This year, it feels like we won the offseason. You know, we have a new head coach in Urban Meyer, who I'm sure you've, met a few times. And now we have a new franchise-worthy quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Like, this is the ultimate shift that any football town wants, a new proven head coach and a new proven quarterback that's had success at every level. Now, in your time, I guess maybe being around Urban Meyer, being at Clemson, or even just kind of some of the words maybe with Dabo Sweeney from his connections with him, what does Urban Meyer bring to the table to Jacksonville just as far as his coaching ability?
I mean, legend, living legend, up there with the Sabans, up there with name a great one. He's right at that same level when it comes to getting a team prepared to play a season, to play a game from a motivational standpoint, from a standpoint, from a organizational standpoint. He does it all. Like, I read a couple of his books, and he's a legend. That's all really you can say about Urban Meyer, and the fact that, him to that job was knowing that he had a chance to sign Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
So, just putting those two together, just a scary sight of what the future has, barring obviously just staying healthy. It's an exciting time to be a Jacksonville Jaguar for sure, because Urban is, like you said, a living legend. And as far as what Trevor has done, the sky isn't even the limit for him or what he can do at that level. Like you said, he's won at every level, and he's dominated. And it hasn't just played well, but he's like every time he steps on the field, he's one of the better players on the field every single time. And I don't think it's going to be different in Jacksonville. Obviously, NFL is going to be an adjustment point, but I just feel with his mindset, that learning curve is going to be just shortened so much. And every experience, every snap he takes, the guy is going to get better. He's going to get smarter. And then you just see that with his, his growth. If you ever watch him his senior year of high school, going back and doing research on just who he was, his mindset of who he wanted to be, like as an 8th grader, 7th grader, his mind was made up that he wanted to be one of the greatest of all time. He doesn't say it as much now, but he wanted to be better than Peyton. That's really his mindset, and that's what drives him. A lot of people did a lot of the talk about, him saying he's not motivated or something crazy that just didn't make any sense.
I think what was said was, and obviously within the media and journalism, it all gets chopped up for the narrative. But I think what he said was something along the lines of, I'm happy of who I am, regardless of what I do on the football field.
Right.
And people took that as him saying he doesn't need football in his life.
This is what people don't understand, like how freeing that thought process has to be. You play a football, the number 1 high school player, you're the number 1 pick in the draft, and you don't let this game define you. Like, you're okay, you're fine, because you're so confident in yourself, and then obviously his faith. That is a freeing thing, and that is a scary thing. NFL, because I think he's about to take it by storm.
Yeah, it's exciting. You said it's exciting times to be a Jaguar fan. 2 massive upgrades at 2 of the most important positions, or 2 of the most important factors within a team, the coach and the quarterback. But I have to ask you about that 25th pick with Travis Etienne. So he comes in, and you're, the grad assistant on the defensive side of the ball. So you're in practice with your guys trying to contain Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. Now they're paired up again in Jacksonville. What do you have to say about Travis Etienne and maybe what he brings to the table?
I'm biased, obviously, but Travis Etienne was the best running back in that draft. And he's the most explosive football player in the draft, point blank period. That I probably the most explosive, most before this was probably Sammy Watkins. When I talk about just explosion his freshman year, what he did as a freshman. But the thing about Travis, he did it for 4 years straight, where he just absolutely dominated. And when he broke through, he's not getting caught at all. The Jaguars, since probably Freddie T, and Freddie T was fast, but I don't think he's on Travis's level when it comes to just straight line.
Well, I love hearing that.
Forget a time. I'm talking about when you get on that field and you see somebody running, and you're like, oh, he's gone.
Yeah.
There's very few people that I've ever seen in person that are like Travis.
Well, I got to tell you, the pick happened, And the emotions in Jacksonville were obviously, oh, that's really cool. We got his teammate from Clemson. That's great. But we don't need a running back. We don't need a backup running back from the 25th pick.
Yeah.
And I put a video out on Saturday on Friday before round 2 started. And I kind of justified the Travis Etienne pick. I was a big fan of the pick because for the longest time in Jacksonville, we haven't had playmakers. And we got extremely lucky finding James Robinson as an undrafted free agent last year. But that doesn't happen all the time. And there's a reason Etienne was the best running back in the draft and James Robinson went undrafted. Last thing I want is to not address the running back need and then James Robinson maybe fall off a little bit, and then we're sitting on our hands trying to figure out the running back situation with Trevor Lawrence. This situation, now we bring Travis Etienne in. Trevor Lawrence is there. He's comfortable, got the former teammate with him from Clemson. Now he's got an embarrassment of riches. Also, I think it helps Urban Meyer maybe game plan on the offensive side of the ball, just having additional weapons. I thought it was funny, actually. I started thinking of this. We went Clemson, Georgia, Stanford, all 5-star guys coming out of high school. I kind of felt like Urban Meyer was avenging some losses on the recruiting trail in the draft, just drafting players that he didn't get to commit to Ohio State. That's what it felt like.
That could be true. But then again, I mean, Travis Etienne, he wasn't a 5-star coming out of high school. He's a 3-star.
Oh, he was a 3-star?
Yeah, you would think he was a 5-star what he did in college.
And that's the funny thing about that is, he's a 3-star and then he proves it on the field in college. And it's like people look back and say, how was he not a 5-star? And it's because he didn't have the proper measurables or the proper this. And you talked about redeemable skills and all that stuff. It's like some guys just have it. Like some guys just have it and there's no way to quantify it or to put stats with it. And
he played the wing T system in high school. So that probably didn't help his status.
Say that again. What
he played the wing T in high school.
Okay. So it wasn't as much opportunity for him.
Right. Well, no, he had opportunity because obviously they ran the ball a lot, but just obviously the system when it comes to the steps you take, coming from being a 3-point stance downhill compared to, 2-point stance and you're on lateral,
Okay.
But obviously Coach Elliott's an amazing recruiter and obviously he saw the traits that he needed to see to know he was special. Not to say LSU definitely saw his traits too now. They were right down the street, but they only had one spot and they took Edwards-Hilaire.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't be too mad at them either.
Yeah. Yeah. There's only so much. There's only so many spots on the roster for these guys.
We're late on them. We got them in January in the process, and because another guy had, I think he got arrested or something happened with his grades or something. I think it was grades where he couldn't get into the school, and they got him late in January. Like, oh yeah, he's the dude. And so it's just crazy how it all just comes full circle. Just the Clemson guy this whole time, just seeing all their evolution and all their development to see where they're at now. Because my first thoughts of Travis, when you say Travis Etienne, every single time it goes back to the first time I heard his name was I wasn't even at Clemson at the time, his freshman year. And all I would talk to people that were in the program, watch Coach Wendy's interviews, and all they talked about fall camp, Travis Etienne 80, 75-yard runs on the first team defense. And that first team defense in 2017 was pretty salty. They ended up with about like 5 first-rounders on it. And he's running through them like it's nothing. And, and obviously it's one of his first, maybe his second carry against Louisville his freshman year, 35 yards, so to be able to actually see it, and then see him do it every year. And then all in the passing game as a receiver, because that was a huge knock on him after his junior season about that he's receiving. And when he did this last year, if you go back and watch the tape, the dude is kind of outside and he's running by people. He's catching the ball at his highest point. He's snagging out of the backfield, going down the sideline, making people miss in space. So there's just so much with him. He's so I don't know if I have a player comparison for him because he's just some of the things he does on the field almost doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
He's running straight as high as most people run, but his legs are so strong. He is so hard to bring down when he's ahead of steam. And it's going to happen in the NFL. There's no doubt it's going to happen in the NFL because he did it against, Alabama. He did it against the biggest programs in the country, So
well, you're firing me up for it. I mean, hopefully all these Jaguar fans watch this and they get fired up too because explosiveness is what we need on the offensive side of the ball, especially with the way that the NFL is trending with offense and points, and you need to score points. And people said we should have gotten a safety or a defensive lineman, and it's like, all right, we were 1-15. We need a lot of things. Like the defensive lineman at number 25 isn't going to take us from 1 win to 8. Like maybe he could, but I don't know.
A game changer like him will, though. Trust me.
Say that again.
A game changer like a Travis Etienne
will
help you.
That's what I'm saying. It's just a more fun pick. Like as a fan, like I don't want to sit here and say, oh, it's it's just the luxury pick. That's not the case. Like every good team these days has 2 running backs. So it's like, why not go out? And you're not going to, all right, you mentioned Etienne, the best running back in the draft. Obviously, Najee Harris went just before him at 24. Luckily, the Jaguars didn't take Najee Harris because he's the same thing as James Robinson, in my opinion. Etienne is just more explosive, more versatile. I think I'm very excited for him on the offensive side of the ball. I want to ask you about Justin Fields real quick, just from your thoughts. Obviously, another quarterback from a great program at Ohio State. He went up against Trevor Lawrence in the Fiesta Bowl this last year. Justin Fields slides down to 11, but there was a point in the college football season where people were talking about him being the number 2 pick. I guess 2 questions. What do you see in Justin Fields from what you saw on the field against Clemson? And then also, why is it that all these players tend to move around during the draft process from January to April, where he falls, 10 spots further than he was expecting?
First off, Justin Fields, from a talent standpoint, as just following the recruiting process and, seeing him, his development, comes to just pure talent, throwing the football, running, making all the – I'm talking about all the 5 levels of throws to make. He's the most talented guy in the draft, and it's not even a comparison. He's above everyone. You go back and look at the Elite 11. I know, obviously, they all had 3 more years to develop, but go back to the Elite 11, he's smoked everybody. Trevor was there. He was with him, but at the end of the day, like, Justin won the competition, hands down, when it comes to just all that. Just my honest observation and, what some things that I've heard coming out of that program, Justin Fields was handicapped in some ways as far as how much he was able to control the offense, and what they do up there, certain coaches, they make the play calls, they make the checks. I mean, you go back and watch Justin's tape, he's looking to the sideline, and they're telling him what the checks are. You go watch Trevor play. Trevor, he's making all the adjustments off of what he sees off the defense.
Okay.
And obviously, what happens in the NFL, what are you going to do? You're not looking to the sideline. Hey, coach, what should I do? Obviously, they got headsets in too, but at the same time, they want to see how fast you can process what's going on, because there's just a billion different things going on. These dudes do calculus before snapping the ball. A lot of people don't realize it. When it talks about where the safety lined up, how's the tackle lined up compared to his D tackle, what gap is he going to do? And then they're so all the different things that go into it. Not to say that Justin isn't going to be able to do it. I would just say that's such a big deal in the NFL that if he hadn't done it, it would be a bigger leap for him to process it right away. For him to deserve a number 1 overall, and that's one thing he just hadn't done. So, not to say that he's a number 11 overall pick for a reason, So, but I think it's going to take a little more time for him to develop into that guy. But I think he landed.
Wait, hey, you cut out there at the very end, Xavier.
Oh no, I said I think he landed in a great spot in Chicago.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Hey, not a lot of people would say that about Chicago based on their quarterback situation the last few years, just with
that is true.
So much turnover. But I mean, honestly, I think it's a good spot too. They got
more so what's around.
Yeah, exactly. He's got pieces around him. Hey, hopefully this will be the best quarterback Allen Robinson's had in his whole career. So it'll be fun for A-Rob to actually finally get some targets if they can figure out his contract situation there. But it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So just last question for you. As far as the draft process goes, obviously we've talked about Trevor Lawrence. We've talked about Travis Etienne. And what is the feeling maybe leading up into the draft as a player, even if you know you're going to be the number 1 pick, or a player if you don't know if you're going to get drafted? What are the emotions like? Is there like stages that you go through or anything like that? Just for some people that watch the draft and maybe don't understand what these players are going through emotionally behind the scenes.
Yeah, I told my girlfriend the other day, she noticed I was cranky, and I had to think about why was I cranky, and I was like, oh, draft time. This time of year, every year still gets me because I wasn't one of those guys that was going to get drafted high. I knew I had a chance to get drafted late or at all. So, that for that first round for me, I can only speak on myself. And I always empathize with the guys that go through now. So I knew I wasn't going the first day, knew I was going the second day. I was hopeful, but you just never know who's going to take a chance on you because it happens sometimes. But I wasn't like crushed by it. But that last day, a couple calls late, hey, we're going to take you. It was like, why the hell are you calling me if you're not telling me? And, one of the calls was 303 number, Denver. And I was like, oh, shit, I'm not drafted 6th, 7th round. And it wasn't the case. So it was frustrating. It was, I would say, not the experience I thought it was going to be growing up. And just at times it's like, you were just when something that you wanted for so long, it just put a lot of things in perspective. And there's two ways you could take it. Is either you could let it, harden you, or you let it shape you and drive you to want to just become the best version of you that you can be. And thankfully, I took that route because, a lot of guys go through some serious depression. Not to say I didn't go through some levels of it, but some guys go through some even way worse than whatever I even thought I could experience,
Yeah.
And, you plan for that day, and, and it doesn't happen the way you want. But a cool thing that I don't think a lot of people do realize is that if you go on draft, sometimes it's better because you can choose what spot you go to. I had like 7 or 8 different for me, and after the draft, I think some people do that, and I realize at the 6th, 7th round they do that just so they can, hey, let you know we really wanted you. So now choose us when you go undrafted.
Oh, gotcha. So it's a little bit of a game from them, giving you a call that way. When undrafted comes up, it's your turn to pick them.
Oh yeah, you guys kind of want me, but then at the same time, I realize it's kind of like, I ain't picking you.
Nah, makes sense, man.
Yeah, so it was cool. It really cool turns into college recruiting again, and then so that's just it's everyone goes through different emotions as they go through it, but it's life and it's an experience I never want to take that.
I hear you. Well, no, I'm glad you took the route you did. Like you mentioned, the 2 paths, and you've obviously done great things since that time of the NFL draft in your class, and going to the Cowboys, then back to Jacksonville with the Sharks, having some fun in the AFL, and obviously now within the coaching world of football, which you're in there young, you're in there early, and you've got a great base so far. So I'm sure the future is bright for you within the coaching world. I'm excited to follow it. I'm excited to watch it. And I'm excited to watch some ULM football this year. Got to give the group of 5 some love. Finally, obviously being a UCF fan, I love supporting these teams and bringing some love their way. So again, Xavier, thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for you, man.
Appreciate it, brother.